this is Heather with the Glittery Bohemian. I thought I would come on here and record a video of how I spray paint my opal cups. With opal cups, opal glitter, it copies the color that's underneath. So basically you could pick any color scheme you want. The one that I'm doing today is kind of the start of my donut mug. If you've seen that one, it has drips on it. So I thought I would start this to show you how to do a regular opal cup, and then later on I could finish up with the rest of the donut tutorial if you wanted to see how to do the drips and all of that stuff. This one is a 14-ounce hog coffee mug. I am using 6 different colors of paint today. They're all pastels. This one is Rust-Oleum Satin Aqua. I usually try to use a satin or a flat if I can. Green Apple, also a satin. This one is Lemongrass. Sweet Pea. Lilac, French Lilac. And then we got I'll throw a little white in there. So basically, this is kind of a process too, because you want to see if you like it. And I just kind of place the paint, just go around and start spraying it in little spots. And just kind of turn the mug around. And you're going to have, like, sometimes it's splotchy or misbehaves. That's not really a big deal. It'll dry eventually. The opal covers up a lot of those mistakes. You don't need to worry about the paint being perfect. I got my green and my blue. Hit it with some yellow. A little bit. Let's get in here. I just did my pink, moving on to my purple. Don't forget the bottom. And then I'm going to head to my white. Now this is round 1. I usually do several rounds until I'm completely happy with the coverage and the way, the colors that I kind of meld them together. This would be round 1 through all the colors. Let me throw a little bit of white under this handle here. Round 1. I'm going to go back and hit it again. So I'm going to start. I mean, you don't even have to go in the same order if you don't want to. And you can go back to the same spots. You can add in different spots. There's no really rhyme or reason. You know, if you made a mistake the first time around, cover it up. Who cares? Spray paint. And if you spray paint and you hate it, it's an acetone. Clean it off. That's it. Don't know until you try. Let me see something. Sometimes I'll look at it and go, oh, I have way too much of this color in here. I don't want it. I did one that had light and dark colors in it, and it was like the darks just showed too much for me. So I went back and kind of added more pastels, and it looked better to me. So, it's misbehaving. Shake it better. You'll also get that sometimes. Shake it up a little bit more. This one's definitely not happy. This cup kind of, when you look at it, it's kind of scary at first. You're like, whoa, I just made a gigantic Easter cup. But it totally changes its mind when it's under epoxy. It really does. It looks more like a opal, like a stone. So here we are. I'm going to put one more little bit of white. And then I just kind of look at it and take a look and see what I like, what I don't like, and try to meld some colors a little better. But or I'll look at it and say this needs more of this color, and I'll go in and spray it a little better. Make sure this handle gets covered here. Spray white, and then I'll go back and put some colors in it. Now, if you notice, I started with a steel cup instead of a white cup. It really doesn't matter. You don't have to spray the whole thing white. It's a lot easier just to sand it and wash it and go from there because it gets covered. Because as you can see, I'm doing many coats here. So, I think this needs a little more teal to me. So I'm going to go in and spray a little more teal. Let's go ahead. Here. And sometimes, like I said, the paint will run and like whatever, like this purple right here is being a jerk. I'll just kind of turn it a little bit and it'll dry eventually. It doesn't have to be perfect at all. It's just something that's going under the paint. And it, under the glitter. And it doesn't show every exact thing, it just mimics the color. So let me take a look at that. I'm thinking a little more pink now. So I'm going to go in here with my pink. Hopefully it's not unhappy. I'm going to take it some more. It was unhappy a second ago. Yep. That's my husband in the middle of the video, y'all. There we go. There's the pink. Throw a little bit on that side too. So see, we've got, I'm getting pretty happy with this, I think. I might throw a tad more yellow. I don't see a lot of yellow right now. Get one green. Just kind of go around and just keep spraying until you get what you like. So here's what we've got. I think I'm a little happy with that. A little more white. I think I am happy now. This is what we've got. And it's just, you know, swatches in different spots, including the handle. I think I forgot one spot on the handle. What color I want to make it purple. Let's make it purple. Let me see. There we go. So, yeah, just go in there and make it the way you like it. And then I'm going to take this in and I'm going to let it dry for quite a while, like an hour or two, and then I'll go to the next step. Hi guys, so welcome to my itty bitty tumbler space here. I thought I would show you how I mix my epoxy before we move on to the next step of the Opal Mug. A lot of people have questions about how my epoxy looks like glass and how I mix it, so I thought I would do this really quickly for you. I get mine in the gallons. I use the KS Ultra Stone or Stone Ultra UV. I'm not real technical about my measuring. I'll show you what I do. I just use measuring cups, medicine cups, which I have to open right now. Get a couple out of there. I don't like the pumps because they are hard to pump out of. I do have heat lamps up here, so that kind of keeps my epoxy heated all the time. So my part A is not really that thick. In the wintertime, it gets thick sometimes. So I just, after I pour it, my part A, I hit it with my heat gun real fast. But right now it's warmer out, so I don't have to do that. And I just poured way too much. I'm going to want to pour a very small amount because I'm doing epoxy method for my glitter. If you are using epoxy method, you don't need a lot, like very little. I mean, probably between 5 and 10 mLs. So let me see what I've got here. I'll probably do about 5 of each. Very scientific. I rest my cup up here on the top of my turner, and then I pour my part B, and I look at them and see if they're even. And that's about as fancy as I get. Most of the time my part B has too much, so I kind of pour that very lightly because your part B is thinner than your part A. So like I said, if it's winter time, I will hit the part A, this cup that's thicker, my resin, with the heat gun, but it's not right now. So I'm just going to take them both. You know, you guys know this part. I use this little metal stick. I don't use popsicle sticks. I use this metal one. It's worked just fine for me. I do want to get like a real metal stirrer that has like the ball on the bottom. I haven't got my hands on one of those yet. So anyway, I'll scrape my cup pretty well. I know you can't see this because my hand is in the way, but I'm just scraping all of this out. As much as I can anyway. I don't stress about getting every drop, but I try to get as much as I can. And this is sticking to my mat because I epoxied something this morning. I do not stir. I have found that I noticed a lot of the stirring machines that you buy put your cup on an angle when they stir it. So I always do that. And it does kind of help keep the bubbles out of it. I don't stir super slow. I don't have a method. I kind of stir just like, you know, speed I'm going normally. And I try not to take my stick out of the epoxy. I mean, it's already clear, and I haven't been stirring for that long, and I don't have that many bubbles. But to get rid of the ones I have left, let me get my baby wipe here. I always take my stick, wipe it off, put it back where it came from so that it doesn't get lost. Over here, it's kind of hard to see, I have 2 candle warmers. They're like $5 at Walmart. I just have like a metal lid with some water in it. And I take my mixture and I put it in here for 10 minutes. And that kills like most of the little tiny bubbles. And then if, you know, I'm doing epoxy method here, so I don't care about bubbles so much. But if I'm epoxying and after I apply the epoxy, I just hit it with my torch. And the torch that I have, I'll show you. I got it from Amazon. It has a safety on it. Right here, you have to push this and this at the same time so your kids can't catch your house on fire. It takes butane. It's one of those torches that you use for like creme brulee. It's like a cooking torch. I think it's like $20. And it takes these butane refills. You use them to refill like lighters and stuff like that. So that's what I use to torch my cups. I'm going to pause this and then I'll come back with you to epoxy that opal cup and we can get it glittered. So my epoxy's ready. It sat in the bath for about 10 minutes. I just wanted to show you what it looks like when it's done. You see there's very few bubbles in there, and I have about probably a little under 10 mLs here. I got my mug from earlier. Now don't panic. I know you look at this and you think, gee, what did I do? It looks like a humongous Easter egg happened, which would be great if all I did was Easter cups. But trust me, it really does not look like this. When it's done, that opal glitter does wonders on it. So I am going to, let me go grab a arm to put this on so that I have something to hold it. Okay, I got my arm here. I have been trying to conserve gloves since you can't find them because of COVID. I usually use a whole one, but I've been cutting off a finger. That way I can get 5 uses from one glove. So, put that on my finger here. And I'm just gonna, I usually like to just epoxy. I mean, if it's on my turner, like if I need my turner, I have 2 things turning right now and I don't have a lot of turners. And I just do it over here. But I would like to put my, I'm going to put my silicone mat down. That way this doesn't get messed up because I'm going to glitter on that. So let me throw this here. That way if I drip, it's no big deal. You don't want to put a lot of epoxy if you're just glittering something, because then you will have the glitter kind of sinks into it and you don't get the pretty shine, and it's uneven, so you want your glitter to be even. So I'm kind of like being aggressive with it. I'm smearing around as thin a layer as I can. So I kind of push kind of hard. And I could pour it on here, but I feel like that just makes a mess and you drip it everywhere. And I feel like I can't control it. So this is a coffee mug, so the handle is going to be fun. You kind of have to get in there and get that handle. Now when you're turning it, it's the same as a regular cup. People ask about that. It works the same. The epoxy still levels on it, and it's fine. There's nothing different that way about it. But you do want to make sure you get around the handle really well. Smear it in there really good so that your glitter sticks. Man, you have a little while to work with this. You're going to have a while to spread it before it starts getting too thick. And so just take your time and make sure you've got a decent enough layer on there. You can see that it's a little shiny. See where you've epoxied and haven't. But normally if I'm doing, like if I have my turner available, I slowly turn my cup. Like I will turn my machine off, turn it a little bit, and then put the epoxy on. And then I'll glitter it right on the turner. But I've got 2 things on the turner right now, like I said. I'm going to be getting a 9-cup turner in a month or 2. So, as I've been getting super busy. But for now, I've got 2 on the turner, so I'm going to do it this way. And that way I can just kind of let it dry after I glitter it. It can dry on its own. And still smearing here. I'm almost around the cup at this point, but then I got to do the bottom. You have to make sure you get the bottom done pretty well. And I know this is the real exciting part here, but yeah, for those of you that don't know, again, I did about 10 mLs, and I've still got plenty in this cup. So I probably could have gotten away with less. But I always err to a little bit more than I really need. Okay, so I'm gonna go around one more time with around the whole cup. Make sure there's just like enough on there for me, especially by the handle. I'm gonna make sure I got around that handle pretty well and under it and on the sides and all of that. I didn't do this side too well. Get a little bit more there. Okay. Then I'm going to hit my bottom real fast and then we'll be ready to glitter. See the bottom? I still have some left. Just to show you. I mean, I still have probably still a little left in there. That's a pretty close guesstimate, I would say. I did about 10 mLs on this, and it's a 14 ounce. I don't know if I'm going to use this later, so I'll put this off. Sometimes I use a mold. I have a very small try to pick this off of here. Guitar chip mold. Works awesome for really small amounts of epoxy. So sometimes I'll dump one in there and make a guitar pick out of it. Okay, let's move this out of the way. I have so much going on right now. Cups everywhere. Okay. Now we're gonna glitter this here. I've got Prism from Glitterful. They make really nice opal glitters. This one I love. It's great. So I'm just going to sprinkle this on here. Nothing fancy about this. You just try to get good coverage. And sometimes I go around a couple times. Make sure I got it on there. Really, the good thing about waiting and doing it slowly is your epoxy gets tackier. So if you epoxy quickly and it doesn't sit on the cup, it's not tacky, so it's not going to hold your glitter as well. So I kind of take my time because then it gets like super sticky. I mean, if you've ever had, dealt with epoxy that's been sitting around for too long, it gets super sticky and tacky. So I like to let mine, take my time, let mine sit a little bit, and then it sucks that glitter right in. I'm going to do the bottom here. I'm going to go around one more time. Now this is my first coat. I do 2 coats of the opal glitter. As you can see, it's already starting to look different. It doesn't quite look as Easter eggy anymore. This is the first coat. Once I hit that second one, it really looks different. Now, I'm going to balance this for a moment, and then I'm going to take my wax paper. This is wax paper. And then I'll put my glitter back, because I did not use all that much, and I don't want to waste this. It's pretty stuff. Okay. So your wax paper does you good. It cleans off really easily. I'm going to take the same wax paper. Those of you that work with chunky glitter and you hate it because it pokes out all the time. Oop, I missed a spot. Hold up. Let me get that. At least I think. Yeah. Then I'll show you what I do to kind of help it lay flat. Again, I do 2 coats of this. This is my first layer. Okay. And I still have plenty left. So I'm going to take my wax paper and wrap it around the cup and just push down. Complicated with a coffee mug than it is with a curve or a skinny, but I'm just pressing it because you see how it's all like sticking out right now. I'll show you in a minute. And this is just pressing down. You see how it's not sticking out anymore. So let me get this one little part here. Just push down on it. Sometimes I'll just stick it in there. And you really need to get a couple of coats of this glitter on there. So that you get more of that opal rather than the color. You want the color to be subtle. So the more of this you use, the more subtle the colors are going to be. The handle's a whole lot of fun. I'm wrapping it, just patting it a little bit. I'm going to do the bottom. I didn't put the bottom, so I'm just going to pat it with the wax paper. Pat it down. There's not. And I'm just going to go back under here, hit around my handle. Another important thing you want to do at this point is get those like shardy pieces that are up top. You see these yucca pieces right here, they're like sticking out. I just take my finger and run it along the top. Now some of this you can just pop off with an X-Acto knife too, but I try to get it now so that I don't have to deal with it. And I'm gonna, you know, like I said, epoxying this again and glittering it again. So, but I try to get my trusty baby wipe over here. Never go anywhere without it. And I'm wiping it off. I'm wiping my finger on the baby wipe. So yeah, I got most of those. So you see, I get most of those shardy pieces off, so you don't get a lot sticking out. I patted it with the wax paper, and I just kind of double check it. And if I see anything that's poking up, I hit it again. I'm going to hit this with a little bit more because I see that there's a spot here. But basically, that's what you do. You've got your first layer and you wait. I like to wait about 4 to 6 hours, and then I come back and I hit it and I will do the second coat. So I'll be back for that. So this is the Opal mug after it had 2 coats of epoxy, and I sanded it. And the sanding part is not very exciting, so I did not show that. But I will tell you what I do use to sand it is a pretty rough, like a 80 sand block to get the rough patches down a little bit. And then there's not that many, but there's a few that poke out after the 2 coats because I kind of flood coat it. So I use the 80 for a few minutes to smooth it out all the way around. And then I use a finer sand block. I think it's like a 150, 200, somewhere around there. But the fine grade, the ones that say fine on them. So it takes a little while. It takes about, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes for me to sand it the way that I like it. But this is the mug after 2 coats of epoxy, sanding it with a rougher grit sand block and then a fine one. I put 1 more coat of epoxy on it. And next step is I'm going to decal it, so I can show you that when I get to it. Okay, we're back for the decal. I thought I'd show you guys how I put decals on my cups. Just to remind you, Opal cup. We spray painted a lot of different colors on here. We epoxy method the opal glitter. I did 2 coats of it, so I epoxied a light amount again and put a second coat. Then I did 2 coats of epoxy. On top of that, I flood coated, and then I sanded with a rough sand block and then a fine sand block. I got both of them at Walmart, I think. The rough one was 60 grit, and then the finer one I think is like a 150. I got it. This is the finer one. It's a Gator brand. It's at Walmart. I've used it a lot. So I I sanded it down, and then I did one more coat to make sure it was smooth, and now I sanded it to get it ready for decal. So we're ready to do the decal. I usually do wet method for my decals because they're kind of on the large side, because I don't care for the ones that have the smaller decals so that they fit like right above the curve of the cup. It bothers me. So I tend to make mine a little bit larger. So I've got my decal for this one, and I put it on regular gridded transfer paper. I get my transfer paper from Expressions Vinyl. This is their clear gridded. I also like their paper transfer tape, but I like the gridded for this so I can see that it goes on straight. The other stuff, if it's something that I don't really care, I'm just scattering stuff, I'll use the paper tape. So with the wet method, I've got a water bottle. It's got a small amount of dish soap in it, mostly water. And you are going to, excuse that top. You are going to spray your cup. Make sure it's pretty wet. And then you're going to peel your decal like normal. And you're going to wet the back with the same water and soap. If I have words on mine and people ask me if I warp mine all the time, I don't. If there are words on it and there's no frame, this one I'm going to have to work with the frame. I cut through between the words so that I can kind of bend them a little bit, so it ends up being warped the way that it goes on. This one is going to be interesting because I don't have that opportunity. But when you put it on the cup, you see how you can move it around. That's what you want. So I'm going to keep this cup wet, and I'm going to put this on here. And I want to make sure the words are straight, so I take it and I get down on the floor and look at it. Let's see where I want to put it. And when I'm happy with it, I put it back up here and I start pressing. Also, with this method, you don't have to worry about it getting wrinkled, because when you take the transfer paper off, you can still make adjustments to it. You'll probably have some wrinkles in here. And your transfer paper, even when you're doing regular and not wet method, if your transfer paper gets bent, that's not a big deal. You're trying not to get your vinyl to bend. Right now I'm focusing on the words in the middle. A lot of times I'll take a paper towel to dry some of the stuff that comes squeezing out, because of course I want it to kind of stay wet right now. I think I'm going to make adjustments to the frame after. So what I'm going to do is push down the top of the frame, see if I can get this tape off. Mess with the frame later. Let's spray some more water under there. Let's see if I can get just one. If you can get one little corner off of the tape. Let's see. Now I can kind of peel this off. Play around with it a little bit. More than I. Sometimes it takes some time. This end does not want to come off. I will get it off. Sometimes I'll use my tool to hold it down. Now the tea doesn't want to come. Way. And if you take your time, you have to go really slow. You can get everything off of there. Press it down the way you want. See, my frame isn't all the way down, and that's okay. I'll fix that in a minute. Okay. And make some adjustments. I guess I can do that because this isn't stuck to the cup right now. Pretty close. I'm getting there. I am. That came up. Now, see, there is no way you would have been able to get that on there without a bunch of wrinkles if you didn't wet it. But you see, I have no wrinkles. It's on there. And what I'm going to do is usually I take my transfer tape, put it back on there and rub it over. And I let it dry to make sure there's no water left in there. And to make sure it sticks down. But I put that decal on there. So I'm going to take my transfer paper. And I just take my little scratchy tool. And push it down. And you are going to want to let this dry. If you try to epoxy it right away, your epoxy will get under the letters where there is water, and it will peel up the letters. So you need to let it dry to let that water out. So I'm just going over it a little bit, making sure it's down there, rubbing everything down. It takes a little extra time, but it looks better, and you don't have to rip it off a million times because you've got wrinkles, other things that you don't want to be happening there. Bubbles, wrinkles, all that. That's it. I'm going to put that off to the side, let it dry. I'm going to epoxy it, and then it will be finished, and I will show you the final product.